Mike McMahon, EcoVapor Recovery Systems.
Let's start off by talking about what is it EcoVapor does.
EcoVapor Recovery Systems has been in operation for was founded about 9 years ago. We have patented technology that is very unique. What we do is we have equipment that removes oxygen from a natural gas stream. And what this does is it allows operators to unlock all the opportunities involved in capturing tank vapors. Vapors are generated in a variety of ways in the oil production process. Essentially, the well stream flows from the wellhead through some initial separation where the natural gas portion of that well stream is taken off at line pressure. And then typically the liquids flow to storage tanks, which are very large. They're operated pretty much at atmospheric pressure. And this dynamic allows for the release of a lot of vapors that are contained or captured in the liquid. And they're liberated because those storage tanks are very large and have very long residence time. And they're operated at very low pressure, so the vapor pressure of the vapor allows them to come out. These vapors are typically flared in many applications or just burned or destroyed. And so our technology allows these vapors to be captured and sold into the gas gathering system because those vapors typically contain oxygen, and we remove that oxygen and allow that vapor to be sold, which opens up a whole host of opportunities and opportunities to bring value.
You mentioned flaring. That's something that comes up in the news quite a bit, especially up in my area, the Bakken. You're down. Where are you based out of?
Our headquarters is in Denver, and we have
kidding.
field offices. One north of Denver in Greeley, Colorado, and then one in Midland, Texas.
Okay, no kidding. So you guys are down in the Permian then, I would imagine, or at least doing some business in the Eagleford, Permian, Haynesville, Texas area, correct?
Yes, we have over 100 installations out in the field at this point in all the major basins.
And how's the flaring down there? In North Dakota, it's a big issue, and there's political issues up in North Dakota where only certain companies get in and get access, that sort of thing. That's a story that's been heard over and over again up in North Dakota. How is it down in where you're at? Are you guys getting access to the proper people? Are the Texas officials keeping up with what they said they'd keep up with when it comes to flaring, that sort of thing? I'm not asking you to get political here. I'm asking you just kind of, this is your business and this is how you guys make money. And you know what? There's certain ways that innovation needs to happen. And one of them is pushing the envelope a little bit on these guys to start, getting innovation going. So sorry, I just had to push it a little bit there, but you understand what I mean, because I feel your guys' frustration, and so it's you try to be professional at the same time. You're like, listen, you guys are the ones asking for this. Here's your solution. So sorry about that. I'm not trying to do your sales call for you, but.
No, this is great. I appreciate the
help. But what's it like down there? I mean, you know what I mean? Because you've got the officials trying to actually make a conscious effort in reducing flaring, yet you got all these science projects going around, and it's not happening yet. Is it? But you guys at least have 100 installations, so in your world, it's happening at least slowly or on pace by numbers, that sort of thing. Talk to me about that business climate and that environment and that sort of thing, because it is very regulated.
Sure. So rewinding in time, a few years, there was a time when vapors that are generated in the production of oil and gas were just simply released to the atmosphere without being burned. But uncombusted hydrocarbons being released in the atmosphere are much more damaging than combusted hydrocarbons. So, over the last, years, regulations and regulatory oversight of the combustion flaring of vapors has become the status quo in every state. EPA obviously has federal regulations, and then each state has a little bit different process for managing the flaring process. So flaring originally came about, as a more environmental friendly solution to the vapor being generated, than just releasing it uncombusted. But it is regulated, and so there are emissions from these flares that have to be managed. So our technology takes what is a waste stream, currently a waste stream, and turning it into revenue, and also improving the emissions profile, and the environmental footprint of the well site. So what we see with many clients is that they want to improve their emissions profile and de-risk their environmental compliance by capturing this vapor instead of selling it. So it makes good business sense from a revenue standpoint and good sense from a regulatory compliance standpoint. But additionally, these flares are very visible, and it is becoming I guess just more of a sensitive issue with the public as they drive by or fly over and see flares burning. They identify that as waste and something that they would prefer not to see. So there is also those more intangible reasons why many clients want to work with us and come up with a solution for capturing that vapor and turn the flares out.
And I honestly, I think this is something that needs to be nipped in the bud pretty quick, because I think what you said is going to happen more and more, where people are going to start pushing back a little bit more on this flaring, because this is something that is supposed to have been solved over the last 10 years. And if people aren't seeing it's being done, they're going to start questioning, okay, why isn't this being done? Like the one thing I'm hearing up in like North Dakota, up in the Bakken, is there's money set aside to help companies to reduce flaring, but then the dollars go to the same companies who then work with the universities. And so a lot of the smaller companies have a hard time breaking through and getting past that next thing. And if you're the big companies, why wouldn't you not work with the universities? Because it's cheaper and the regulatories work right with you, that sort of thing. And so up in the Bakken, they got to compete with the universities and the government quite a bit for some of these flaring things. And they didn't hit their last mark. And so that's kind of one of the issues happening up there. And like I said, I'm not trying to get into politics here, because that stuff just already happened. That's done with. That's just a fact.
Right.
Yeah. Are you guys seeing any, I guess, government dollars or government assistance to help you get in with some of these companies? Because let's be honest, some of these bigger companies, they don't even have offices around here. They're like in, some other Dubai or something like that. So you understand what I mean, though, is that what type of assistance is happening? Because the taxpayers have paid a lot of money to help reduce the flaring. That's where I'm getting at. And the whole idea is companies like yours are the ones that are help reducing this problem. So, yeah.
Sure. No, that's a great question. I would say, first of all, just to maybe frame the phenomenon of flaring, obviously in order for our solution to be viable, the producer has to have a pipeline. They have to have infrastructure and a gas pipeline in place as a gathering system to collect the gas and bring it to a gas processing facility. So there may be some flaring of gas that's taking place because the operator wants to would love to capture the gas, but there's just no infrastructure to do so. In other areas, for example, there's some areas of the Permian where there are pipelines in place, but they are, fully subscribed. So I think, the industry is reacting and trying to install, more pipeline capacity to collect and carry away more of the gas. But, there are instances where at this point, that's just not viable. However, in cases where it is viable, we're seeing that there's a lot of operators, no matter where their headquarters is, who want to do the right thing and just want to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, reduce their environmental footprint and their environmental regulatory exposure. So we have a lot of clients that work with us. There's a couple of large operators in the Permian who have basically come to us and said, let's work together on designing a system and coming up with a solution for capturing the tank vapor instead of flaring it. And if it makes money for us, great. But if it doesn't, that's okay too, because we want to put the flares out. So there's more and more operators are taking that proactive approach. What I love about our approach is, or our solution, is that not only do we put the flares out and reduce the emissions, but it also makes very good economic sense in most cases, and so it's something that's really a win-win-win for the producer. They get more revenue, they get a more and from an environmental standpoint, cleaner footprint and a de-risked site environmentally, and there's positive safety implications for the site as well.
Well, let's talk numbers a little bit, talk turkey, if you would mind. And the reason I say that is because, one of the reasons why a lot of the natural gas or the value-added technology innovation hasn't been adapted is, they say, cost. It's not making money. And that's where I adapted the term science projects. They've got science projects going on some of these wells. Well, that was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And it sounds to me, if you guys are installing the number that you are, and you guys are making some money for people over at EcoVapor Recovery Systems, Mike McMahon's joining us, the CEO, EcoVapor Recovery Systems. Take a minute and talk a little bit about, are you guys saving monies for your customer? I know you mentioned that some people are doing it out of goodness of their heart, but let's be honest, that's not everybody out there, because people need to pay their bills, et cetera. Are you guys, saving some money for companies, that sort of thing? Take an opportunity and give yourself a nice commercial, if you will.
Sure. No, thanks for that. Thanks for that segue. Everyone's process and everyone's situation is different. Obviously, the more vapor that's present on a site, then the more potential revenue stream and the economics become more favorable. Just to give you some numbers, the typical unit that we provide to oil and gas producers can process 300,000 cubic feet of vapor per day. And with one of those units, if it's fully loaded, in other words, if it's run at full capacity, if we do a lease arrangement, it will about the first 5 days of each month pays the lease cost, and the rest is pure incremental profit for the producer. So from a straight economic standpoint, on a site of reasonable scale, we can demonstrate very favorable economics. Now, just to caveat that and not get too technical, there are different types of gas gathering systems and different contracts out there. And so it really depends on the specifics of those contracts. But, in most cases where there is a reasonable volume of vapor available on a site, the economics are very, very favorable. I'm talking about in the hundreds of thousands of dollars per year of net incremental cash flow to the customer. Some of the other ways that we also provide economic value is obviously by de-risking a site environmentally, by turning a well pad into a zero emissions well pad. Then the exposure to fines in case of exceeding your permit, those obviously that is de-risked. There are some regions of the country where there's a limit on how much emissions can take place off of a well pad, and so that just limits the amount of production or the number of wells that can be located on a pad if you're flaring your vapor, because once they reach the maximum allowed volume of flaring, then they can't add any more production. Obviously, if if our solution comes in and makes that pad a zero emissions pad, then you can co-locate many more wells on that one location, and that allows the producer to be much more efficient with their capital. You can put many more wells and concentrate on one pad, so their site development costs and some of the common pieces of equipment, separation equipment, that sort of thing that would be on a pad, that capital is used much more efficiently. So we bring that economic value as well. Hope I'm not getting too technical, but additionally, from a safety standpoint, we allow the producer to run a safer pad where, first of all, you don't have a flare and the exposure of the flare. You also have storage tanks that are operated at lower pressures, and so there's less exposure to vapor for the employees out on the well pad. So there are many different ways that we bring value and hard dollars to the table. And so once we can sit down with a producer, with a potential client, and show them, how our technology unlocks all these opportunities, typically it's a very positive conversation. They look at it and go, "Wow, I want to do that. How can you help me do that?"
Now you're coming from a trade show. What trade show are you just at?
This was a trade show in Austin, Texas. It's the number 4C environmental conference. So it was a broad, not just oil and gas, but a broad gathering of safety, health, and environmental types of solutions. And so I gave a presentation there on our technology and the opportunities it unlocks, and then we have an exhibit booth there as well. So great deal of interest, and had some great conversations about how we can help clients achieve their objectives. Basically, more free cash flow and zero emissions.
And that's pretty much what you spoke on, was kind of just an overview of how they can use your services, save some money and reduce their emissions. And I imagine a lot of that was what we just talked about. But is there anything that is, bullet point worth, or anything that from the, presentation that you think people should, walk away from if we haven't talked about it, or maybe we did?
Yeah, because the presentation was fresh on my mind, I've really covered most of it. The title of the presentation is Flare Less, Sell More. So it's very simple, and we just talk about how our solution. And one of the things I've found is that really the degree of expertise in exploration and production companies in upstream oil and gas, their expertise in vapor recovery is not as strong as in other areas, because it's really not core to their business. Most of these companies are really, they're focused on getting more oil, in the tank, and getting more barrels per day out and selling more oil. So we have a very, very experienced and strong applications and design group that can work with a client to design the whole system. We understand that vapor recovery is not done by many operators, and so we have the expertise to come in and really design the system and provide to the client a turnkey system.
You mentioned you got an office in Greeley. I used to do a magazine down there back in a former life, I guess. How is Greeley doing these days? It's been a while since I've been there. I remember they had the big stockyard there.
Yeah, Greeley is a great town. A lot of great people there. We've got a great tech service group in Greeley, but just a really nice town. It's growing quite a bit.
Is it growing? I wondered that, actually. I mean, they got a college here in northern Colorado, correct?
Yes, you're right.
Okay, yeah, and I wondered if they were growing or not.
Yeah, and they're doing I noticed last time I came into Denver Airport, they're doing some advertising about, the great quality of life there, and even I think touting the quality of their water, and the good tasting water in Greeley. Yeah, so great place.
Okay. Well,
and you can get on the right hill and see the beautiful Rocky Mountains there in the distance. So,
yeah,
a lot of
and
good things.
I'll tell you, a lot of times I go to Colorado probably about, I don't know, 5, 10 times a year. And I'll be honest, a lot of times I stay in Fort Collins. And the reason I do that is because it's real quick to Horsetooth Reservoir, so you're real close to a lake. And I don't mind driving 45 minutes into Denver for a meeting type of a thing because, Denver's a big town. Unless you know where you're going, oh, man, you can get lost pretty quick there. And so Greeley's just, a stone's throw from Fort Collins, just real close by. And I always think maybe I should go to Greeley sometime and check it out. Because honestly, I haven't been there in probably over 10 years. It's been a while since I've been there. But good to hear. Okay, good. That's glad to hear that they're growing. And I always wonder with stockyards, Sioux City, Iowa, they closed theirs a number of years ago. So it just makes me wonder about those things when you've got towns so known for one industry. I know they've grown since then, as you said, but okay. All right. I ramble sometimes and we're getting off topic. So it's like old home week. Anyway, well, what do you want people to walk away from? I like to give guests kind of the final word and the final thoughts. So anything, we missed, anything you want to reiterate, that sort of thing. So the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. No, I just appreciate the opportunity. First of all, just want to state that I'm very proud and very thankful just to be representing a great team with EcoVapor. It's a very very high energy group and a group that's very passionate about about the environment, and about bringing solutions to our customers that not only make good economic sense, but really are just a nice environmental solution. We have a tracker actually on the dashboard that we publish every month with our financial results, and this is just internal at this point, but we actually calculate how many cars worth of emissions we captured during the previous month or during the previous period. And I just saw the dashboard for January. I think the number is 30,000 cars worth of emissions, that we captured and translated into saleable gas instead of turning it into emissions. So that really gives me a lot of energy and a lot of passion to know that we're bringing a solution that typically brings good economic sense, but also makes a pad safer and is good for the environment too. So certainly not a fit for every operator in every basin, but we would love the opportunity to work with operators and see if our solution is a fit. And we've got the expertise and the horsepower to make our solution as much of a turnkey as possible, because we know that operators, especially in these days and times, are very busy, and so we can fill those gaps and just make things better for them. So really appreciate the opportunity to share this with you.